Hey guys, welcome back to another Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 video, and today I'm going to go over the biggest tips and tricks that everybody should know jumping in. This is going to show you how to be much better at combat, never get enemies even lay a finger on you, plus many other tips on top to help you out in your journey. So first things first, in terms of combat, one of the best tips I have for you is that your stamina as well as the repose mechanic are your best friends in terms of completely avoiding any incoming damage, especially in 1 versus all situations. Specifically, as long as you have stamina, you can just hold the block button and block any incoming attacks. But even better, the repose mechanic is going to help you even if you don't have any stamina left. This is something that the game teaches you already by the time you hit the prologue, but if you press the block button just as an enemy is about to land an attack on you, so when that green shield appears on the screen, this is going to let you completely deflect that attack and even follow up with your own attacks afterwards. Not only is this great because it works from any direction you get hit from, but it's also going to work even at very low to no stamina levels. So yes, you can still pull this off even when the screen turns completely gray. On top of that, I also suggest and also pay attention to how I'm doing 1 versus all situations. As you can see, I'm flanking and constantly being on the move so that no two characters face me at any given time. Instead, what I'm aiming for is that only one of them ever gets the chance to hit me at any given time. Besides the fact that this helps you against multiple melee fighters, if it ever happens for archers to be in that enemy group, they will not have a chance to shoot any arrows at you because their teammates will be in the way. Combining these two options right here will give you some of the best chances at survival, especially since you're going to constantly fight 1 versus all types of encounters. Now, the next tip that I have for you is to immediately go ahead and learn Master Strikes. You can learn from Tomcat right here at the Nomad Camp a bit further west from Trotsky. I do recommend talking to Bara initially in Trotsky so that she reveals this information for you on the map. But once you do, there's only a couple of missions, and the second one is the one that teaches you all you need. Again, more detail on this in my perfect start guide. But Master Strike is amazing. It's even better than in the first game. Basically, the game explains what you need to know about it already, but the gist of it is that you're going to have to attack at the same time as your enemy does, but from the opposite side. Say the enemy is about to attack you from the right side. You're going to position yourself from the left side, so the moment he unleashes an attack and that green shield appears on the screen, this is exactly when you're going to now press the attack button instead, which is going to make you do this animation that both deflects and then hits the target in one single fluid animation. It goes without saying that Master Strikes, unlike every other strike, is completely unblockable and will always hit the target even if it's completely shielded up or has armor on it. That is what makes this the best ability in the game. The same goes if the enemy is about to attack from above, you're going to approach it from below, and so on and so forth. The next tip is about saving your game. Yes, this is important in Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 because it's a bit different compared to other video games. So specifically, there are 3 ways to save in this game. One is by sleeping at your own personal bed. This only works with your own bed, not beds belonging to other NPCs. That is why I recommend always making sure that you rent out indefinitely beds in every single town that you go to. It's inexpensive, it's always going to be accessible to you, and you can easily save at that location. The second way is by using savior schnapps, which is something that you have to consume to pull this off. But luckily, unlike the first game, they are way more abundant this time around. You can craft them via alchemy, you can find them from looting, and even buy them from most of the merchants in the game. So just make sure that you never run out of them so that you can easily save on demand right here from the save menu screen. And the last one, in case you don't have any other way to do so, is to just use the save and exit feature. When you pull this off, it's going to create a permanent save file. It's just going to exit the game for you, but you can always be sure that you have that moment saved in time so that you can progress from that point on. You will just have to restart the game for that matter, but that's a small price to pay if I were to say so. Now, speaking of saving yourself, one of the best foods in the game is going to be honey, and the best part is that it's free, it's abundant, and you can get it from very early on. Pretty much every town in the game will have some of these honey bee spots that you can go ahead and loot. One of them is very close to this exit right here from Trotsky, and there are about like 50 of them that you can find all around. So this food never spoils. This is going to give you a ton of nourishment. You only need like 3 to fully max out, and it also doesn't deplete any of your energy, unlike many of the other foods. Alternatively, you can also dry some of your food if you don't want it to spoil. Say, for example, you have a lot of meat from, like, for example, hunting. What you're going to want to do is use the dry rack at any nearby alchemy spot, put that meat over there, and that's going to turn it into dry meat. This also has no expiration, gives you a lot of replenishment, but it is going to consume some of your energy when you use it. Besides that, you also want to pay attention to your max stamina level and any wound that you might have sustained in previous battles, because they can carry some very big drawbacks for you. For example, tiredness will bring big penalties to charisma and your speech, which means dialogue skill checks will fail more often. Also, hunger can affect your max stamina levels, and high enough hunger can even start slowly decreasing your HP. But for example, injuries can also affect different body parts differently, so you always want to treat them. So for that reason, I recommend it to buy permanent beds in every single town that you meet. Simply talk to any innkeeper and try to rent it long term. It's very inexpensive, costs like 20, 30, sometimes 40 gold at max, but it's going to give you a permanent place to both rest as well as save. At the same time, I also recommend crafting the early game Chamomile potion. This is going to let you rest much quicker and even gives you plus 15 to energy by default. So even if you don't sleep after consuming this, you still get plus 15 to your energy level as long as you craft the strong version of it. So meeting all of the steps necessary to craft it. Once you do that, you're going to also notice that if you rest, it's going to take about 2 to 4 times quicker for you to fully reach 100%. So instead of like 6 or 12 hours, it's only going to take like 3 hours max to fully rest out from very low levels. Now, moving on to the fourth category, we have learning skills. Obviously, this game is very similar to Skyrim, so when you go in and use skills, the more you use it, the more you're going to increase your level with them, which is going to open up new perks for you. However, besides that, you can hasten the process with a few other things. One of them is to head over at the scribe right here in Trotsky and buy any skill book that you have from him. Yes, they seem expensive, but I talked about making a ton of gold in my perfect start guide, so already go ahead and check that one out. But once you do have enough, you can buy these books, read them, and then sell them back to him to get at least half of the price back. So in this case, to hasten the process, I recommend going and sitting on any bench, and this is going to pretty much make you learn any book in no more than 3 hours. In this case, it's going to give you a massive boost to whichever skill you chose, depending on that book that you read. Besides this, I also recommend paying attention early on to some of the masters, specifically looking at these icons on the screen. The teaching masters will help a ton to further progress with some of your abilities. Now, you can have different levels of teaching, from novice all the way to like expert, which is going to cost anywhere from 100 groschen to like 1,000 plus. But early on, 100 for a low level skill can mean like 1 level, which can help quite a bit. 500 already teaches you like a couple of levels, so that's going to increase quite a bit. So this is something that I recommend using for skills that you don't use that often, but maybe still want some of the perks from. However, not all of them will have a cost. Some of them, if you finish specific quest lines, can be taught to you for free. Like for example, Tibor teaches you a bunch of skills for free once you finish the full Nomad quest line. At number 5, let's also talk about a bunch of money-making methods, including thievery, as we've talked about in the Perfect Start Guide. So this is one of the best ways to make money early on, especially if you steal the nobleman gear from the tailor back in Trotsky. So in this one, I already explained in my Perfect Start Guide, but if you just steal the keys from the shopkeeper in the house next to the shop, you can go ahead and more easily open up that shop and pretty much loot everything inside, including the 300 plus groschen you're going to find inside, plus hundreds of extra that you also get by stealing the items. And from this point on, you just have to wait like 2-3 days max, and you're going to notice that the steel debuff on them is going to disappear, and you can pretty much sell them at almost any vendor that takes them, including the one that you just sold them from. So just go to anyone that still has a stash of money to pay you for them. Besides that, another great money-making method that will give you even more groschen per hour is selling horses on the black market. And luckily, you can do so easily at this guy back at the Nomad camp, which is why I recommended going there very early. So there are many spots from which you can steal tons of horses. There's like 3 or 4 at the pastures back right here in Trotsky. There's 2 more at this small village right here a bit further to the west. And Samin has even more, like 5 or 6, if not a bit more, some of which you can also keep to yourself since some of their stats are very strong. So once you've got one, I recommend doing all this thievery at dawn, at the very least in this case at about 5 o'clock in the morning, so that nobody sees you, but you have enough time to go there and the NPC spawns at the Nomad camp. So just steal it and then immediately fast travel to the Nomad camp. If you're doing this properly, by the time you hit it, it should be like 9 o'clock, point at which the black market NPC should go to his post. And then you can just go ahead, speak to the guy, and this is going to let you sell that horse right away for 300 plus groschen. The only 2 things to keep in mind is that if you leave this stolen horse for too long, eventually they will run away. So make sure that you always stay on the horse. And second of all, also make sure that you don't do this too often. Otherwise, the NPC will not have enough funds to buy that from you. So maybe wait a few in-game days until that replenishes. And besides that, if you arrive too soon and don't want to waste the horse going back, you can just use a different fast travel to make the time go by and then come back once 9 o'clock passes in the morning and then do the selling. Now, the 7th tip is going to be all about keeping yourself clean and glistening, and that's going to be related to cleaning blood and dirt. Specifically, if you appear fully bloody, that's going to make you appear more threatening, but also more suspicious, especially if you recently committed a crime. Meanwhile, dirt just makes you more stinky, so more easily detectable, especially when sneaking about. So in the case of blood, you can easily clean out all of your gear and your body at any of these water barrels that you will find in most of the towns, cities, and villages. Simply go over there, it's a quick clean, and it will immediately remove all of those stains. In the case of dirt, it's a bit more complicated, so you have 2 options: either to go at any pond and clean your items for free, or go at a bathhouse such as this one a bit further west from Trotsky. In this case, they can even offer you extra services like cleaning your wounds at the same time, plus it can remove dirt from all gear pieces, not just the ones you have equipped. And there's even some extra services in there, if you get my meaning, that you may want to take. Offers a bit of extra happiness and also a bit of extra stats. At number 8, if you're lost and don't really know what to do, the next best thing is to check out point of interest tipsters. You're going to notice quite a lot of them on the map, but also talking to NPCs in general will reveal many points of interest, such as, for example, talking to the merchant in the first town. This is going to reveal some places like an abandoned cart that was filled with some very important goods you can take up. And this is going to always reveal them on the map with a distinct icon, which is going to make it very easy for you to find them. At the same time, if you're lost and don't know how to progress in the current quest, pay attention to the quest log. More often than not, it's going to give you the short version of everything you need to know, especially if you already skipped or did not pay attention to the previous dialogues. You're going to have everything over here in the short version, and it's going to guide you very well through most of the missions you need. And while we're still on the subject of quests, make absolutely sure that you always accept any extra objective you're given, especially from main story missions, because more often than not, you're going to be given items that are much stronger than anything else up until that point, but they are also completely missable. So stuff like some of the best weapons, some of the best saddles with some of the highest carry capacity, and much more are given when, for example, you're challenged to an extra duel, some extra competition, or maybe a dice game. That is why I always recommend doing these, because those items are almost always extra worth it. And since we talked about gear, I'm also going to explain some of the stats in the game. Obviously, the armor and the block chance are pretty self-explanatory, just passive ways to reduce incoming damage. But besides all of that, the physical layered armor on your character is also another layer of defense that first gets damaged before your HP even gets touched. So as long as you have armor on your character, many of the attacks in the game will not deal any damage to your HP until that armor piece is actually first destroyed. So for example, if your hands and your feet are covered in armor, you're going to notice that wolves, for example, do not deal any damage against you, even if they bite at you. Conversely, if you get hit by a sword, for example, it's that armor piece that gets damaged first before your actual HP starts decreasing. And that's going to resist for at least a few hits. As long as you don't get hit constantly, it's going to give you a nice layer of defense. But this also comes at a cost, because if you have a lot of armor, you're going to move much slower, and you're also going to have a much harder time managing your weight capacity. Even though the game starts with a very good amount of weight capacity, if you get a ton of armor on, you're not going to have much space left to maybe steal everything around you or collect a ton of other items. So that's why early on, your horse stash helps a ton. It has hundreds of carry capacity, so you can transfer the items you don't use to that. But later on, as you use your attacks, gain more points into strength and some of the other options right there, there are many perks that give you a ton of carry capacity, even per amount of strength that you get. So as somebody who plays as a knight, you're going to have a ton of carry capacity by the mid game, and even your speed will be very high because there are many perks in there that make you run very fast and consume very little to no stamina when doing it. So don't fret too much about it. And besides that, I also recommend having multiple outfits at the ready. You have 3 outfit slots, so one of them I always keep for my main gear, my main armor. The second one I keep for dialogues, so in this case any nobleman gear and attire like the one I covered in the perfect start guide I have right here to pass skill checks. And the third one I use is always going to be for stealing and stealthing around. Any gear piece that's of dark color will help a ton to blend in and reduce much of your noise. Do that and you're pretty much golden for everything. And by the way, if anything breaks, you can use blacksmithing and armor smithing kits to repair everything for free. Don't do it at any of the NPCs in game unless you're planning to steal that groschen back. Otherwise, it can cost up to 1,000 groschen to repair your full armor. And that's about it with the biggest tips and tricks. The only one I have left that didn't get its own category was to mind the low branches. Just make sure that you don't hit any trees with low branches, otherwise you will get knocked off the horse and it's going to look really goofy, so be careful about that. But that is pretty much it in terms of the biggest tips and tricks you should know as a complete beginner. As always, if you found this video useful, make sure that you subscribe to the channel, leave a like on the video, and also activate that notification bell. It really helps a lot, and I'm gonna see you guys in the next video.